Being a YouTube personality must be a pain in the behind. You have to climb every section twice for the shot and another after going back for the camera. Yep, there's nothing quite like doing the hike twice while filming it. It's just a bunch of walking back and forth. Certainly a different experience than just going out on a normal hike just to do the hike. Making the film about it makes the experience about making the film, if that makes sense, and that can be enjoyable. It can be a different kind of experience, and the reward of being able to look back on that crafted into an edit later is also enjoyable. But no, there's no way I could do every hike like this. It's a lot. It's a different experience, that's for sure. Good morning, Chilliwack. This is where I'm sleeping tonight. Hey friend, I recently uploaded a self-filmed video of me exploring my backyard mountains on my vintage dirt bike, trying to hike around and find some snow, and ended up getting caught in some pretty intense wind on the summit, and it all ended up being a really fun adventure. I made the video on my own, just filming myself, and there's some people in the comments accusing me of lying and that there's a crew filming me and stuff. That is not the case, and there's some specific questions that if you're not from a video background, I can understand why you have them. And then if you also are interested in video, I thought it'd be fun to kind of address some of them. Pull open the edit file and show you some little nifty things in there that I was messing around with, and also address some of the dozens and dozens of comments that have already been pouring in to the video. So if you haven't seen the original video already, that might make a little sense before you hop in here. Or if you're the kind of person that just likes behind the scenes instead of the main thing, like myself, you can just continue on as normal. How the heck did you get those third-person shots on the bike ride app? It was just an Insta360 camera. I use these a bunch. Every time I use them, people always ask, how did you do that? How did you make the invisible selfie stick? This is a 360 camera, so it films in all directions. And then in software later, you can just choose the angle that you want and the perspective of distortion or just the field of view. I really like using these for basically angle flexibility later. I mounted it off a selfie stick to the back of the bike, and that worked for about 15 minutes, and then the threads actually completely tore apart. Luckily, the camera didn't get thrown off on the side of the road. I noticed it just in time, and so then I strapped it to my duffel bag. The second angle wasn't as good, but it kind of got the job done. I like it being a wider perspective than what the GoPro offers. I got a new clip for my GoPro mount, so it's a big kind of tongue like this, and it slides up in to the jaw of the full face helmet like that and gets you that angle off the chin. And I have ran my mic into the GoPro, but the auto gain on the GoPro really frustrates me. And then sometimes when I'm not running the GoPro, I wish that I had the sound. So what I did was I took a little pocket recorder, I clipped that inside of the jaw itself, and then I took the helmet apart and wired a mic that's dedicated with a wind puffy inside of there. So there's always a mic inside, and I plug it into the recorder, and I just recorded the whole time. But because the clip's like that, what I'd often do is just clip it to my chest strap on my camera bag, and then that allowed me to quickly grab it for doing other sorts of shots. And with my hiking pole, especially when I got into snow, what I was doing was I was just clipping the camera itself to the handle of my hiking pole, and then rotating the GoPro to the angle that I wanted. And so that way my trekking pole became useful for grabbing shots of myself, because my main camera setup on this was the A7S III, which is what's filming me right there. If you're interested in what lenses I like with this, I actually made a dedicated lens video on what I use for my lightweight go-to kit. On this trip, I took the 20mm 1.8 and the 24-105. I had to make the tough call about how many times I wanted to take it out of my bag to actually talk to it while filming. So instead of constantly taking it out to do little talking sections, I also relied very heavily on my phone. So I'd pull out my phone and do talking to it on the wide angle mode on my iPhone. The camera bags that I use are Shimoda bags. In my opinion, they're the best camera bags in the world, especially for the type of trip that I was doing there, just because of the way that they're built and the little features that make life a lot easier. So these shoulder straps right here have massive pouches on them. So I just had my phone tucked in to one of these pouches here and had it zipped up. And then when I wanted to grab a shot with my phone, I would zip it open, take my phone out, do my shot, put it back in. And I also have snacks and stuff over here. One of the ways that I got my shots to squeeze a little bit more life out of them, and don't tell anybody that I've been doing this, but camera direction is kind of important to me. So the direction that I'm walking in a shot, I want to make sense from frame to frame. Sometimes I cheat on that a little bit, but I want it to feel like I'm traveling the same direction, because it can be a little disorienting for the viewer if you chop your angles around a bunch and your direction of travel a bunch. If I'm always moving across screen one direction, I want to keep that visual consistency. What I did a couple times in here, I cheated, was I took a shot where I was actually walking back to the camera and I flipped it so that way the camera direction would stay the same. So this shot here is actually me walking back to the camera after I already filmed my shot. But if I flip it and crop in a little bit, I squeeze a second shot out of it for my visual continuity, so it feels like I got more coverage. And I think in this edit, there's about 2 or 3 flipped shots like that, just to pad out the pacing and the coverage, and it feels okay. I wouldn't do that with any shots that have massive identifiable landmarks in it and stuff, and maybe that is spoiling some of the fun there, letting you know that I'm mirroring some shots, but it is a helpful trick that has worked for me. One of the things that I just really enjoy doing regardless is filming at blue hour, that those moments right after the sun has set, and you get that really nice ambient blue light and it's not fully dark yet. Sitting in the tent here, I'm actually quite pleased with how that looks visually, because I mean, that little extra effort to set up this shot and actually think through, okay, if I chuck the candle in the background there, that'll fill in this way. And then if I take my headlamp and bounce it off the corner, actually kind of thinking about how to optimize the lighting in that situation is good practice for me, because I film other people for work, and then filming myself, it's also quite, it feels rewarding to have a frame like this kind of work out as well as it did. I know, this was another frame that I was quite pleased with, especially as the lighting changed throughout that moment of just stepping back a little bit. And I really like the way some of these shots turned out. Looking through the comments of this video, it's quite heartwarming for me that so many of you appreciated and resonated with it. Even Jesse Driftwood is sending me some text saying that this is his new favorite video. So when Jesse reviews the video and says it's his new favorite, that's a personal win. You definitely need a little buddy heater, especially when you have stuff to dry up stuff. A good firewood too. There's quite a few comments about fires and stuff. The area that I was there, it's alpine, and it's a protected area, and they asked for no fires. So there wasn't readily available firewood that I'm just going to start making a fire pit on. And as I digressed, I might have cut down my digression in this edit, but I wasn't wet to the point where I was actually concerned for my safety at any point. Me trying to do survival would look different than what I did in this video. I wasn't at risk of not surviving at any point in this, so I didn't feel the need to like emergency fire to dry myself or stay warm. It was -2 degrees at most Celsius, which is, relatively speaking, not that cold. And if you're layered properly and you have a sleeping bag and stuff, I'm not gonna freeze. So that's why I didn't build a fire. And bringing a little buddy heater, I'm not gonna bring a propane tank and a propane heater. No, that's not happening on a self-packed in trip. Not gonna happen. How are you not lost? I am confused. Well, maybe what you're talking about there is the sections of hiking through the snow line. I mean, the layout of this hike, all things considered, is very straightforward. There wasn't any place where I was disoriented. It was very clear. And I had backup maps on a GPS, and I had a phone and a compass and a map. So that's how I wasn't lost. It's also it's very straightforward. You just, and you go up the thing. It's, cold is one thing, cold and wet is entirely different. Blisters starting late in the day, should have backed out. Better to optimize things if you have a choice, especially when you're alone. I mean, from my perspective, the hike that I was on was not a challenging hike. The terrain I'm familiar with, the layout is simple, and there wasn't any point here where I was concerned about my safety as an individual, and I was willing to take full ownership of that. So if you are on a hike and you get blisters and that means it's a no-go for you, I won't fault you for that. If I personally get a little soaked because it's BC and it's raining like crazy and my boots are a little damp because my Nalgene spilled open and and I'm just feeling like the schedule isn't going right. I think making the call to adapt plans is good practice. So not just being laser focused on doing the trip in an exact specific way. When we go ski touring, the whole thing is being able to make decisions on the fly to travel safely through terrain. And that ability to not just stick to a plan just because is, I think, where a lot of things start to unravel in experiences where injuries happen. It's just being, we're doing this no matter what. So in that terrain, I was comfortable. I was not concerned about my safety. And so therefore things like comfort items like wet boots, it's not a concern. Yes, that kind of attitude can also then rapidly decline into a situation where a sequence of really poor decisions are made, especially when you're alone. That was the way that I approached it. Was that a BlackBerry in the opening clip? No, that's the GPS spot device I have for emergency communication. Not not a BlackBerry. That'd be pretty funny. Yep. I want to take a moment to tell you about the sponsor of this video, and that is Squarespace. They're an all-in-one website building tool that just make it incredibly simple for building a beautiful website for that business you're launching, your freelance career, whatever it is that you want to share with the world. Doing it with Squarespace is really straightforward. We're celebrating our 10-year anniversary on the channel, and I've been using their e-commerce functionality to add a bunch of new designs to the store and various different hoodies and options and adding different sizes. And they just make it super simple with their drag and drop design and professional features. I highly recommend heading over to Squarespace, starting a free trial, seeing what you can build, and when you're ready to commit, make sure that you use my code for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Tags out. Yep, I was wondering if someone was going to comment on that. I had a shot where I was standing looking at Mount Sham and I got a tag sticking up out of my sweater. Yeah, that was that's funny that someone said that. Lots of concern over the wet gear. To set the record straight, I had other warm layers. I wasn't hiking in soaked gear. The boots did get wet. So primarily the gear that was wet from the Camelback that I used on the trip was the wet boots. And then just hiking in the rain, I got wet. So that's the amount of wet that I was. And then also the temperature. Temperature-wise, the coldest temperature I saw was -2 degrees Celsius on my thermometer, and that was in line with the forecast. It wasn't projected to get any more than -5 at the extreme end. So it was very moderate as far as that winter threshold goes. It was not -15, -20. It wasn't that kind of temperature, which in those scenarios, things can go from bad to worse a lot quicker. Not saying that you can't have bad times in just freezing or even above freezing temperatures. That's not what I'm saying. But certainly the way that I behave in -15 degrees is just slightly different than you saw me in this trip. If you enjoy kind of the technical breakdown stuff, I'm happy to do more of it. Let me know the questions that you may have in the future. I teach filmmaking through the Adventure Film Academy. So if you want to go deeper, if you want to go in a workshop, if you want to take a boot camp, if you want to join a cohort, if you want a community, I highly recommend going to Adventure Film Academy and just checking out what we got there, because that's what I love doing. I love this stuff. And that's going to be it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, life's better when you make stuff.